Thank you for being with us. We're here with two Israeli ambassadors, Alexander Ben-Zvi, the ambassador to Russia, and Ambassador Mikhail Brodsky, the ambassador to Ukraine. Shalom to you too.
Hello.
Shalom.
Shalom. So we'll start with you, Alexander. The situation of the Jewish communities in all the former Soviet Union have been, complex in the past year. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what's going on in the Russian Jewish community and how Israel is assisting this Jewish community as it does always?
Well, of course, this year is a different year. You cannot compare it to the previous times, although we cannot say that the Jewish community has suffered in some kind of way. Of course, there is an influence of all the laws, the recruitment, the things that are connected with the conflict with Ukraine, with the war. And so it influences the Jewish community in some ways. I don't think more than it is influencing other, let's say, layers of the Russian society.
Okay. And now, Mikhail, you have a very different situation in Ukraine now regarding a very big, wave of refugees leaving Ukraine, and lots of Jewish refugees who were interested in making Aliyah. Many of them made Aliyah. What was the role that the Israeli embassy in Ukraine played in such a difficult year?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And unfortunately, I cannot say the same as my colleague Alexander Ben-Zvi said. The Jewish community in Ukraine has been heavily affected by the ongoing war. Jews, like everybody else in Ukraine, are suffering. And some of them, as you mentioned, became refugees. Some of them, about 16,000, as far as I know, decided to make Aliyah, but there are many others that decided to stay, either to move westwards in Ukraine or to go outside of Ukraine and to stay either temporarily or permanently in different countries in Europe and also in the United States and Canada. But definitely the whole traditional world of the Jewish community in Ukraine has collapsed on the 24th of February, and it probably will never be the same. Although I can say that at least for now, the Jewish life in Ukraine continues. The majority of communities and the communal leaders are still in place. The rabbis are there, mainly Chabad rabbis. But all in all, it's a huge trauma for Ukraine and for everyone who lives in Ukraine, including the Jews. The embassy from the very beginning of war has been active in providing assistance both to Ukraine as a whole and to the Jewish community, together with the local communities, I should say, and together with the international Jewish organizations. I'm talking mainly about the humanitarian aid, but also about rescuing the Jewish refugees and the Israelis who were in Ukraine when the war broke out. And together with the Jewish community, we rescued more than 15,000 people, some of them Israelis, some of them Jews, some of them Ukrainians who just asked to assist with leaving Ukraine, and we provided this assistance. At the moment, the situation is a bit different. There is almost no organized attempts to leave Ukraine. Everyone can do it. And it's not as complicated as it was at the beginning of war. But still, we keep providing assistance to the Jewish community and to Ukraine as a whole through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mashav, and other organizations.
Okay. I was actually at the Medica border between Ukraine and Russia and Poland twice. at the beginning of the war. And I saw many people, which is interesting to see, many people left Ukraine without their documents because they didn't necessarily have documents, right? I mean, we have an older population or many people who just never expected to leave the country. So, I mean, how does like Israel deal with that? It must be a very big.
Well, speaking of Israelis, many of them didn't have documents and needed our assistance on the crossing points. That's why our representatives were present 24/7, at least at the beginning of war, first month or month and a half since the war started. We were present there to assist the Israelis with the documents, to facilitate their passage through the border control and so on. And I should say Israel was the only country who sent its representatives to the border to assist its citizens. We were alone, the only diplomatic representatives there. All the rest tried to assist their citizens probably by other ways, but we were the only one who sent diplomats to the border. And we assisted many Israelis, probably thousands of Israelis, to leave Ukraine in the first month or month and a half of the war. And now there are still some Israelis in Ukraine, but the situation, as I said, is different. Some of them cannot leave because they have dual citizenship. And being Ukrainians, Ukrainian men, they cannot leave the country. I believe that following the war, when the war ends, there will be another wave of Aliyah from Ukraine because many families will be able to leave. So I believe that some of them will decide to come to Israel.
So you expect that when things calm down, there'll be another wave of Aliyah from Ukraine?
I think so, but it definitely depends on how and when the war will end.
Okay, interesting. Alexander, there has also been a very big rise of hundreds of percent of Aliyah from Russia. In the past year, we're talking about, I think, about 36,000 who made Aliyah from Russia. How does this, as an Israeli embassy, does this create more work for you, or is it more kind of other ministries dealing with this?
Well, both. It is creating a lot of work. I mean, because some of them are coming for the visas for immigration, and some of them are coming and looking for Israeli documents or registering marriages, registering children, all those procedures to facilitate the Aliyah. Now, of course, it brought a huge queues outside the embassy. That's true. Of course, the situation here is nothing to compare to Ukraine. It's not a situation of emergency. We have weekly 30 flights between Israel and Russia. So you understand that there is no problem except places on planes to make Aliyah.
Right. And now, how are the Jews of Russia feeling in this time of uncertainty? I mean, you said it's no different maybe than other citizens. Maybe maybe they're in a different situation because many of them know that they could travel to Israel potentially.
Yes, definitely. Some of them are actually saying that the possibility of traveling to Israel to make Aliyah makes them feel a little bit better. So many of them do that. As you mentioned, the numbers are much higher than previous years. And some of them are at least feeling that the state of Israel is there, and we are actually participating in all the events of the Jewish community, not only in Moscow, all around Russia. I mean, our team is now in the Far East, meeting with the Jewish communities, and we're doing it all around Russia to make them feel that we are there, and that the state of Israel is open for all those who want to make Aliyah.
Right. And people outside of Russia are having difficulty to understand what the state of the Russian Jewish community is today. So, I mean, is everything acting as usual? Are Jewish schools still open? Are synagogues operating? Nothing has changed in that point, just it's like the feeling in the air, or is there something more dramatic than that?
No, everything is working as usual. The schools, the synagogues, everything. There are Jewish events all around. There are events that we are organizing that people are coming freely without any problem. So from this point of view, nothing changed. Of course, there are people who left, some of them prominent people or famous people who left to Israel, and that creates some buzz in the local press, but they are very few, relatively, of course, from 35,000, maybe, 20, 30 very prominent or famous or some kind of celebrities. That creates here a buzz, but not that much in Israel, as far as I know. So, but otherwise, the life is normal.
Okay. Michael, the situation has been very unstable, and can you think of someone you met or a story, kind of a story that you had, meeting a family of refugees that made you emotional or understand the situation more than you did before you had this conversation with them or met them?
Yes, of course. There have been so many emotional stories. The whole situation is very emotional and very difficult for everyone. But I remember one situation when, whilst we were next to the Ukrainian-Polish border on the Polish side, we were going quite often to the crossing points to assist the Israelis, to assist other citizens with either documents or to cross the border. And at one point, we got the information that an old woman, a righteous among the nation from Ukraine, who saved Jews and her parents saved Jews during the Second World War, was about to leave Ukraine and asked for our assistance. So we came to one of the crossing points. I don't remember which one it was, and assisted her to go through the border, to pass the border. And we had a short conversation with her. And once again, it was an opportunity for us to thank her and her family for what they did to those Jews whom they saved during the Holocaust, during the Second World War. It was very, very emotional. And we continued assisting the righteous among the nations. When we were in Kiev, we distributed some heating devices before the winter, which is going to be very harsh in Ukraine, with the assistance of a local organization which helps righteous among the nations. We came physically to give out these heating devices to some of the righteous and some of their families, because the majority of them are not alive, are not with us anymore. But we try to keep contact with the families of the righteous among the nations. And each encounter, each meeting with these people is always very, very, very emotional and very, very warm from both sides. But this is what just episode out of hundreds episodes, very emotional episodes that I can remember from this period of war.
Now, Ambassador Brodsky, are Ukrainian Jews coming back to where they live?
Yes, some of them are coming back, but as you said, the situation is unstable, and I wouldn't rule out that as we approach winter time and the cold weather, some of them will decide to leave again to Europe, because the situation in Kiev and in other major Ukrainian cities is very difficult, and you know that the electricity is unstable. There is in some parts of Ukraine there is no fresh water, so it's not easy to stay in Ukraine. Some had no other choice but to come back because they have families, they have businesses in Ukraine. But I think it will change and the situation will evolve over the next month because it's totally unpredictable and it's totally unstable.
Okay. Ambassador Ben-Zvi, I know also many people who made Aliyah to Israel or who left Russia actually came back, whether to take care of their business or their apartments, etc. Do you see this situation where people are kind of whether making Aliyah or leaving Russia and then returning because, again, it's not very easy to just immigrate in a time like this?
Yes, we do see such phenomena. We don't know the numbers because, as I said,
Right.
having 30 flights a week, you don't know who is coming back or who is not. But I've seen several people that came back, yes, that they went there at the beginning and they're now coming back to take care of their businesses, putting children in universities or schools and things like that. So yes, this happens. I don't know how extensively, but it did.
And what are the reasons? Is it to take care of family or business, etc.?
Yeah, more of that. Business, family, education. I don't know, difficulties to adapt to life in Israel and so on. But and some probably went just to at least to pass the first several months and the conscription issues with children, and then when they saw it's not that dramatic, so they came back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Right.
forget they still have their a lot of things for them here.
Okay. So I want to end with a question for both of you. Our viewers in the Jerusalem Post are all over the world, mainly in North America, but all over the world. What's important for our viewers to know about your work in the countries that you're in, representing Israel? What is something that you think the world should know about your work? Ambassador Ben-Zvi, you can begin.
Well, first of all, for us, it's important to know that we are here, and whenever it is needed to help in some way, again, it's not dramatic as Michael says. We are not giving heating devices or water or things like that. As I said, the situation is actually relatively normal. But the important thing is that the Jewish communities have to know that we are here and we are ready to assist in the ways we possibly can. Mainly for us in Russia, is of course facilitating for those who want to make Aliyah.
Mm-hmm.
Or preparations for that. So that's I would say main issue. Well, we don't need to, as I said, to deal with a daily needs of the Jewish communities.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Ambassador Brodsky.
Well, it's like Alex said, it's very important, I think, to know that we are there. We are there for the Jewish community and we are there for Ukraine. And Israel supports Ukraine and has supported Ukraine from the very first day of this war and will continue providing assistance both to the Jewish community, to the Ukrainians, and we will also be there when the war ends to assist to rebuild Ukraine, to recover this beautiful country, and to assist to recover Jewish life in Ukraine.
Okay, so I want to thank you very much, and both of you have very important roles and very complex and difficult and also very different from each other. So Ambassadors Alexander Ben-Zvi and Ambassador Michael Brodsky, thank you very much for your time and thank you very much for what you do for Israel and for the Jewish community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you.